This is a good story, with a bad ending, but it's a good story. When Boris Yeltsin announced he was running for re-election in Russia in 1996, his advisors famously wept. He was in 5th place in the polls. Political observers had totally written him off. His staff said he seemed old and frail and sick. They thought they were witnessing their guy's last hurrah in Russian politics, so they stood backstage and cried when he announced he was running for re-election. But then Yeltsin made a big comeback, and he did it in part with advertising. He ran very aggressive attack ads against his communist opponent. This one has a big picture of the communist guy's face, and then in Russian it says, "This could be your last chance to buy food. Vote for Boris, otherwise you'll starve." Wow. Russia hadn't really seen a political ad campaign quite like the one that Yeltsin deployed that year, but it worked. He beat his opponent, the guy he said would take away all the food. He beat him by 14 points. This was the Washington Post after that election in 96. Quote, "Yeltsin campaign rose from tears to triumph. Money and advertising turned fortunes around." One observer said Russians were so bamboozled by that ad campaign that it turned people's brains to mishmash. That's the technical term, mishmash. But that strategy, that never-before-seen in Russia ad campaign, it was designed by this guy. His name is Mikhail Lesin, L-E-S-I-N, Lesin. He developed the ad campaign that won Boris Yeltsin re-election, and for that, Yeltsin made him his press minister. And Mikhail Lesin stuck around the Kremlin for a while, through the beginning of the Vladimir Putin years. He was an important person in Putin's political inner circle. He helped run Oppo against Putin's critics. They called him the bulldozer. He ended up founding the TV station RT, Russia Today, Russia's state-run propaganda outlet. Most recently, he worked for Gazprom, Russia's state-owned gas company, as head of media there, because in Russia, it's not weird for the state gas company and the state oil company to have their own TV stations and media empires. But this guy, Mikhail Lesin, was a longtime fixture of Russian politics in Putin's Russia, and then he up and quit. In 2014, Mikhail Lesin announced he was quitting his cushy job at Gazprom Media. He did it suddenly and unexpectedly. Nobody knew why he was leaving. There were reports he was about to be investigated here in the United States for possible money laundering. By some accounts, he went into hiding. By some accounts, he had a falling out with people close to Putin. Reportedly fearing for his life, he contacted the FBI and the U.S. Justice Department and reportedly told them that he was ready to cooperate in that money laundering case if they could keep him safe. During that time, Mikhail Lesin's whereabouts were kind of a mystery until he turned up dead in a hotel room in Washington, D.C., with an appointment to go to the Justice Department the very next day. Hold that thought. In November 2015, an employee at the DuPont Circle Hotel in Washington, D.C., opened up the door to the penthouse suite on the 9th floor and found a dead guy laying face down on the carpet. Mikhail Lesin, Vladimir Putin's former media czar, found dead in that D.C. hotel room by hotel staff. According to the medical examiner, the cause of death was blunt force injuries to the head and also to the neck, torso, upper extremities, and lower extremities. As far as what caused all that blunt force trauma, though, the medical examiner didn't know. Quote, manner of death, undetermined. So we got the cause of death, but not the manner. Justice Department opened an investigation into the death of Mikhail Lesin to figure out how an ex-Russian official turned up dead in a D.C. hotel. After almost a year, the Justice Department announced that they'd got it. They'd figured out the manner of death. They'd figured out what had killed that Russian guy, how he got blunt forced to death all over his body. They concluded that the death of Mikhail Lesin was an accident. All that blunt trauma to his head and his neck and his torso and his upper extremities and his lower extremities, it was all an accident. The Justice Department determined that Mr. Lesin died alone in his hotel room after days of heavy drinking. Lesin drunkenly fell down multiple times, which is how he got all those injuries that killed him. He got drunk, he fell down until he died. That's how they closed the case. There were still a ton of open questions around Mr. Lesin's death, as you might imagine. For months, people speculated about whether he really did fall to death in a D.C. hotel room over and over again while alone. It was a big mystery, a lot of discussion about it. And then 3 FBI agents came forward and said, no, that's not what happened. 3 FBI agents spoke to Buzzfeed News last summer. They said unequivocally that Mikhail Lesin did not drink and fall himself to death in that hotel room. They said he was bludgeoned to death, specifically with a baseball bat. Quote, Lesin was beaten to death, one of the FBI agents said. There isn't a single person inside the bureau, meaning the FBI, who believes this guy got drunk, fell down, and died. Everybody thinks he was whacked and that Putin or the Kremlin were behind it. Which is news, but it still left open the question of why he got whacked in the first place and whether this would ever be solved as a murder. Those FBI agents had an answer for that, too. Quote, it was the Department of Justice that paid for the hotel room where Lesin died. DOJ officials had invited the Russian to Washington to interview him about the inner workings of RT, the Kremlin-funded network that Lesin founded, according to those FBI agents. But Lesin never made it to the interview. He died the night before it was scheduled to take place. So these anonymous FBI agents coming to Buzzfeed and telling them that hours before Mikhail Lesin was scheduled to talk to U.S. investigators, he was murdered in his D.C. hotel room. That report from Buzzfeed News, for obvious reasons, went off like a rocket last year when they published it. Opened a cascade of fresh questions about that case and what the U.S. government would do about it if those agents were right. Well, now today, BuzzFeed has added more supporting evidence to this dramatic claim, and this time it's from a different but familiar source. Quote, the FBI possesses a secret report asserting that Mikhail Lesin was beaten to death by hired thugs in Washington, D.C. According to the report, Lesin fell out with a powerful oligarch close to Putin. Wanting to intimidate Lesin, the oligarch then contracted with Russian state security agents to beat Lesin up, the report says. The goal was not to kill Lesin, but Lesin died from the attack. Now here comes the familiar character. Quote, the report, according to 4 sources who have read all or parts of it, was written by the former British intelligence agent Christopher Steele, who also wrote the famous dossier alleging that Russia had been cultivating, supporting, and assisting Donald Trump. Just yesterday, the United States joined more than 20 countries and expelled a whole bunch of Russian diplomats out of the country, closed a consulate in Seattle, kicked out those Russian diplomats, all in response to the poisoning of Sergei Skripal, former Russian spy who was attacked with a rare Russian nerve agent on a park bench in Britain earlier this month. Britain has blamed Moscow for orchestrating that assassination attempt on their soil. The foreign minister says it's attributable to Vladimir Putin. The UK has kicked out diplomats. Yesterday, we kicked out 60 Russian diplomats from our country in solidarity with Britain and all these other countries around the world. Now that BuzzFeed has broken this news today, that the FBI has, among other things, a report from Christopher Steele that a similar attack might have been carried out right here in the United States, a mile away from the White House. What happens next in this story? Joining us now is Jason Leopold, senior investigative reporter with BuzzFeed News. Mr. Leopold, this is some reporting, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It was a heavy lift.
Yeah.
It was we spent a year reporting this out. And just to, if I may add, it was not just Christopher Steele who handed this report, but in addition, 3 sources independent of Steele also went to the FBI with basically the same story about Mikhail Lesin and about the way, the manner in which he died.
Now, I'm going to ask you a Steele question that I don't think you're going to be able to answer just in terms of protecting sources, but sure. You don't say why Christopher Steele did a report on this, nor who he was being, who was paying him to do it. Are those things you can't talk about?
Correct.
Okay.
but let me just make clear that I'm continuing to do additional reporting on it. So.
But it's not. There's no indication that this reporting that he did on this death in D.C. is directly connected to or paid for by the same people who did the Russia-Trump Steele dossier.
I have no evidence on that at all.
So, what is not unbelievable about this reporting, is that this guy might have been killed because of his connections at home in Russia. It does seem unbelievable that the U.S. government came to this conclusion about his death. Yeah,
it's crazy. When they came out, first, when he died in November of 2015, it was undetermined. In March of 2016, that's when the coroner said it was blunt force injuries, head, neck, and torso, multiple blunt force injuries. they spent a year investigating this, and we know now from our Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against multiple government agencies that they had a grand jury investigation, that they were investigating this as a homicide. Multiple witnesses came before a grand jury compelled to give evidence. That the Metropolitan Police Department in D.C. had asked the FBI to step in, help them look at surveillance footage to make sure nothing was tampered with. They had asked the FBI agents to pay particular attention to the back of Mikhail Lesin's head in some of this surveillance footage, which sort of indicates that perhaps when they found his body, what the back of his head may have looked like. The one thing, however, that in the documents that that the government has released and as part of their narrative, they have not explained how he sustained those blunt force injuries. I mean, only in a press release they've said that he fell down multiple times, but in these documents, there's nothing there. So in the course of our reporting, and also you noted previously about FBI agents coming forward. We went aggressively to try to get FBI agents, current and former, and intelligence officers to speak to us about this case. So it was an explanation as to why it took so long. And it was during the course of that reporting that we discovered that Christopher Steele himself had written a report in 2016, had looked at this, that he had sources inside the Kremlin who provided him with this information. And then we had additional sources who basically said that, Mikhail Lesin had a professional relationship with an oligarch that he fell out of favor with. And that's ultimately was the catalyst, that led to the beating and his demise. Because
of these multiple rounds of reporting you've now done on this subject, and because there were multiple FBI agents who are willing to talk to you about this, is it impossible that this could be reopened as a case and reinvestigated? The idea that Putin might have gotten away with something like this on U.S. soil is distressing. Sure.
With regard to reopening it, we asked Metropolitan Police Department in D.C. They said if additional evidence is presented, they'll reopen it. I also want to make it clear that in these documents, that documents that were released to us under FOIA, that the FBI, and NPD said that they don't have any evidence that there was foul play here. But again, the fact that they're claiming that he fell down multiple times alone in a drunken state in his hotel room
until he died. Jason
begs
Leopold,
for more reporting, obviously.
Jason Leopold, senior investigative reporter with Buzzfeed News. Again, congratulations on a heavy lift of a scoop here. Very interesting story.
Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.